how much credit does Carson deserve for that win?
He deserves the 7th most credit for that win. We all universally agree that the NFC East this year is one of the worst divisions in the history of the NFL. The NFC East is the weakest division we can remember. It's certainly a candidate for weakest division of all time. Carson Wentz started the game by throwing a ball at Zach Ertz's feet. And overthrowing him. The feet came later. Overthrowing him. Got Zach Ertz almost killed.
Wrong.
He almost got Zach Ertz killed.
Wrong.
Well, that's what happened. Anyway, but to crow today, like I assume someone's about to do, based on what we just saw, tells you how low the bar has fallen for Carson Wentz.
This is the weakest argument you've presented in this situation. So, Max, there's one quarterback in the history of the National Football League who's had three straight games.
More than any other.
Who's had 3 straight games of 30 completions. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz in the last 3 games, in fourth quarter overtime, is 34 of 42 for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns.
It's the weakest division ever. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I said he's top 15. You want to argue top 10? I think you lose the argument right now. But you're going to argue top 12. He's an upper half quarterback. My point is, I'm not lowering the standard for him. He is underachieved. He's not where he's supposed to be. He has regressed.
Because Donovan McNabb's teams around him were so much better than Carson Wentz's teams. Donovan McNabb had top 10 defenses.
Excuse me.
Defensively, why? Yes, but offensively, Donovan McNabb was playing with some suspect weapons. They were reliable, though.
They were reliable.
In a much tougher NFC East.
And they were pros at the beginning of the year. They were NFL pros. Carson Wentz took the team to the playoffs with guys that weren't in the NFL, Max.
Donovan McNabb,
and if he doesn't get hit in the head, they're playing this weekend.
If he didn't hurt his leg, he would have been in the playoffs before. If he didn't hurt his other leg, he's not available in the playoffs so far in his career.
Shot.
No, that was one of the 3 times. His team did better. They were perceived as better. They won more. And Rodgers was better. And that was in an off year for Rodgers. You want to put Wentz ahead of him? Dan, have you lost your mind?
You want to sit there and say, how can I place him ahead of Aaron Rodgers? And I begged for you and Stephen A. not to do this because I knew what I was going to do in return to that. So let's not look at last year between Carson Wentz and Aaron, who I love. Let's look at the last 3 seasons. In the last 3 seasons, Carson Wentz QBR averages 5th. In the last 3 seasons, Aaron Rodgers, 18th. In the last 3 seasons, when Carson starts and when Aaron starts, they average 26 points on offense under Carson Wentz. They average 23 points of offense under Aaron Rodgers. In the last 3 seasons, Carson Wentz is better on third down. He's got a better touchdown percentage, better points per drive. Aaron Rodgers, the only thing that he has done better in the last 3 years than Wentz is not turned the football over. But by every metric, by every way we want to measure their performances over the last 3 years, Carson Wentz has played better than Aaron Rodgers. If you want to talk about 6 games last season, to Molly's point, he won 6 games when receivers had less than 75 yards. Like, that's outrageous. So however you guys want to measure their performances, in the last 3 seasons, Carson Wentz has played better than Aaron. These aren't projections. These aren't projections. I literally just gave you production. More points per game when they start. Better QBR. Better on third down. More points per drive when you lead your team. Like, these aren't projections. These are literal productions between the 2 players.
According to NFL Network's Top 100 list, these are the only Eagles who are among the 100 best players in the National Football League. These 5, the only ones. And yes, I will confirm what you're thinking to yourself. Carson Wentz is not on the list. He is not considered to be one of the top 100 players in the National Football League by this list. And I will point out, as we bring my guys back in here for this conversation, that 2 years ago on this list, Carson Wentz was listed number 3 out of the whole league. Last year, he was 96th. This year, Dan, your guy is not even top 100. What is your reaction?
Granny, let me have a little bit of a rant right here, okay? But for the sake of the stupidity of this, I brought glasses because apparently anybody who voted for this list needs glasses because you need to watch some tape to realize what good players look like and what bad players look like. Second of all, I am convinced that this list was made by Dominique Foxworth or Mina Kimes or Marcus Burrs. You know what, Max Kellerman? Max Kellerman made this list because this list stinks. I believe Max Kellerman is behind this or Mina Kimes is behind this, and I will not stand for this buffoonery.
Yeah, look, I'll make one quick comment about that list. It's just stupid. That's just flat out stupid. For him not to be on the top 100, I mean, come on. I don't know what you're doing. I mean, you're just trying to send a message, or you're just trying to exercise an agenda. I mean, that's just dumb. I mean, the list loses all credibility when you do those kind of things. For him to not be on the top 100 list, I mean, I really don't even know what else to say other than that's just dumb. That the whole list loses all of its credibility when you do those kind of things. Because Carson is without a doubt probably, easily a top 20, top 30 player in the NFL. And he's a top 15, top 10 quarterback in the NFL at the very least. So to not be on the top 100 list, come on.
Yeah.
Get serious.
I'm with you. I've actually predicted him to be the MVP of the league this season.
Well, it's a ridiculous list. It merits no conversation, but he is a top quarterback in the league. He's a guy that I think a lot of teams would love to have on their team if they had an opening at the quarterback position. He's in position to get this team to the playoffs this year. He's in position to get this team on a deep playoff run. He's one of the great quarterbacks in the league. The fact that he's not on a list, again, is without merit, is ridiculous, merits no further conversation. To me, Carson Wentz is somebody that I think if a lot of team builders were constructing their team, they would want front and center playing quarterback on their team.
He makes one throw, as I've been saying now for months, one Patrick Mahomes level throw a game where you go, oh my God. 3 or 4 other really good ones, like good ones, and then the rest are questionable. Execution, decision-making. I don't know what you like. I think it's time to sit him down. Not that Hurts can do better right now, but I will point out Hurts is on the team because Howie Roseman in the front office saw the same thing I saw at the end of last year, which is why they drafted a quarterback in the second round.
The first fumble is moronic. It's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. I thought Collinsworth did a great job of pointing out no one's on the field. And here's my thing with Carson. And it's getting difficult to stand up here every day on Monday and have his back, but I'll continue to do it because I do believe that he's a special player. I'm tired of you going into post-game press conferences and saying you just have to be smarter. No, duh. I'm kind of rip apart your argument. It's right now the biggest problem with the Philadelphia Eagles is their coaching. Stop with the use of Jalen Hurts. It's not working. The Jalen Hurts stuff isn't working. He might be Max's second favorite quarterback in the NFL behind Nick, but it's not working. Here's the difference between you and I, Max.
Yes, please tell me. I can coordinate my tie to my jacket.
It's easy for you to finger point and go, that player sucks.
Yeah.
My job,
when it's true.
My job is to give reasons why.
Okay, well, that's fine. We have different jobs. But this is called excuse making.
No, it's called
They have to stop. They have to stop with Jalen Hurts. No, they have to stop with Carson Wentz. He's the quarterback. Hold on, let me just go through some things. He's in year 5. Year 5. This is not a second-year player. He's in year 5. I'm a huge believer in his talent. But the regression at this point, I don't even know.
So why the regression,
I
Max?
don't know if
Could it be the coaching?
No, I think he has too much power on the team. I suspect it's a direct line to the owner, and I think he has not been held accountable. And as a result, the regression continues.
So you think I'm making excuses, and I know you're making assumptions.
He went from the number 1 player in the league on the money down, on third down, to dead last. Is Wentz the regression that I identified last year? Is it continuing this year, yes or no?
No.
Oh, God.
Did the Eagles need to clean house right now?
Yes, they do. And I've been saying for a while now that thanks to Dan Orlovsky primarily in the media, but many media enablers and guys on the team, obviously maybe the owner, Wentz has been enabled. He's been enabled. And last year when you had a bad performance down the stretch, he was told he was having a great performance down the stretch. And that's why he makes comments at press conferences like this is just the way we do things around here. His poor decision making and all that stuff. Wentz got to go. He's not good. He hasn't outplayed a single opponent statistically all season. Not one. He's always outplayed by the opposition every single game.
I still believe the quarterback can be a great player. So the cleaning house thing has to be answered with who you think could be great again. Number 2, there's a big difference between a quarterback playing bad and a bad quarterback. So do we think that maybe there's bad play by multiple players on the team because it's just not that good of a football team? This organization right now has philosophical problems. They have schematic problems. They have systemic problems. They have evaluation problems.
Got a quarterback
and they have
problem.
practice problems. We can pin it all we want on the quarterback. Have fun with that. But I will tell you this, Max, for everything that I would say about the organization, listen, man, I got to hold the L right now. So I had her make me an L. I'm going to give it to you this year, Max. Last year I had a huge celebration parade on your head with what Carson Wentz accomplished, okay? I'm going to hold the L on Carson Wentz this year. I'm not giving up on Carson Wentz for the long term. My daughter made me an L. I'll hold it this year, Max.
In 2017, Carson Wentz was great, and I said so. He has not been great since then. He's been getting worse and worse and worse, and what you see now is the culmination of that. Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, period.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, Max, and I want you to answer it, okay? So you say in 2019 that Carson Wentz regressed, and then the production says that with basically third-string players, he threw for 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and accomplished something that had never been done in NFL history. So you think he did that while regressing? I want you to explain to me how that happens. How a quarterback playing with a bunch of backups breaks NFL historical records while also regressing. You teach me how that happens, Max.
Sometimes passing records for teams that are having to play comeback football in this day and age will look better than, in fact, the play on the field. Carson Wentz in the second half of that season was playing an awful division. He fared worse against each one of those NFC teams than the backup quarterbacks in the NFC
Answer
East
the question,
fared against
Max.
those same teams right around the same time. And he would consistently fumble and turn the ball over late in games on third down.
Answer
I was noticing
the question.
that, Dan, and I was talking to people who told me that Carson Wentz was changing the play constantly, was not running Doug Peterson's offense, was a problem unwittingly. He was trying to be a leader, but a problem in the locker room. It all culminated this season. That's why he has negative trade value. That's why the Eagles are trying to plant in the media ideas that they're going to get a first or multiple firsts for him. That's ludicrous.
You didn't answer the question, first of all, and I'm not going to ask it again because you continue to run from that question. All I know is this. At that position in the NFL, the hardest thing to find is the talent. That's the hardest thing to find is the talent. And if you can sit down with Carson Wentz and get those questions answered of what did you learn this year? Maybe Carson Wentz says to you, like, you know what I learned? That I was too hard-headed, and I played too selfish, and I tried to do too much, and I didn't put in the work that was necessary for me to have the consistent level of success. What happens if you ask the question of, can you be great again? And Carson Wentz is like, absolutely. I can be better because of the things that I went through and the trials that I went through. What happens if you ask the question like, Carson Wentz, do you want to play football again? Like, do you still love the game? And he goes, I've never missed it more than I've ever missed it. What happens if he goes, all I need is a coach to believe in me, and you bring me to a place that could believe in me and allow me to unleash my talent? What happens if those are his answers? You mean to tell me that an organization at his age, with his talent, is not going to go, yes, it's worth us to give up this first-round pick because I know that if those answers are accurate, I've got a bona fide stud on my hands.
The divorce that seemed inevitable this offseason has reached a peak, with the Philadelphia Eagles agreeing to trade Carson Wentz, the number 2 overall pick in the 2016 draft, to the Indianapolis Colts, setting up a reunion with Frank Reich. This, of course, according to our Mike Garafolo. According to Mike's reporting, the Colts are giving up a 3rd rounder in the 2021 draft and a conditional 2nd rounder in 2022. This ends the Carson Wentz era in Philadelphia after he was handed a blockbuster contract earlier in his career.
Dan, do you believe that Carson Wentz will be able to bounce back in Indy?
I absolutely do. 2 words, competency and confidence. The competency is tied to the organization. I think Chris Ballard, their general manager, is a fantastic general manager that's put a really good, competent roster around him, and then the confidence that the coaches are going to instill in him. I always say this with players, and Dom has probably heard this analogy. When you're a player and you're dealing with coaches that aren't good coaches, that you just don't understand the things that they're saying or trying to teach you, it's like not being able to see, right? You're like, I can't see clearly, and you need to put glasses on. And then when you get with good coaches, it's like having glasses on. Like, oh, I can see a lot better, but every day you got to put your glasses on. You got to clean your contacts, you got to put your glasses on, all that stuff. So it's still a little bit of work. Frank Reich is like having LASIK surgery for Carson Wentz. Like, you wake up and you go. You understand why he's calling certain plays and when he's calling him, what he's looking for, and the preparation of the certain situational things. And that's the analogy. It's like going from needing glasses, wearing glasses, to having LASIK surgery and being like 20/20 or 20/10. Perfect vision with that coaching. And I think that coaching is going to breed a ton of confidence into Carson Wentz. I'd also say that this year's 2021 Indianapolis Colts roster is a lot like the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles one. There is no star on this roster offensively, nor was there in 2017 when he was the runaway MVP. It was built upon the offensive line in 17. They've got a great offensive line in Indy this year. They didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver in 2017. They're not going to have one this year. They had like 3 that went over 800 in Philly. They didn't have a 1,000-yard back in Philly in 2017. They had 4 dudes go over 400. Now, while Jonathan Taylor is a really, really, really good back, Mack and Hines in Indy are as well. So I think it's like baseball. You know, Carson Wentz last year went up there all the time at the plate, Dom, like, okay, I got to hit a home run. I got to hit a home run because I didn't have anybody on base around me. He's going to have the ability to have so many good hitters around him. He just needs to have the mindset of, I could hit singles, just put the bat on the ball, make good swings. And I think that's a huge reason why he's going to have a big bounce back season, given he stays healthy. Okay, first of all, because I've been on television with you respectfully, and you've talked about last year how bad he was. So if you're going to point out that 17 was an aberration, then you've got to be fair and say that last year was an aberration. I don't even know if I'm saying that word correctly, by the way.
Oh, you're doing it.
That you got,
excellent
okay,
job.
so you got to point that out to be fair. Number 2, you can't talk about Carson Wentz having a track history of poor decision making. I think he's the only quarterback, or maybe one of 2, including Drew Brees, that has had 3 straight seasons when he's had 21 or more touchdowns and 7 or less interceptions. Like, that speaks directly to a guy that is a good decision maker. My thing is this. In the NFL, you can't coach talent. Talent-wise, physical talent-wise, he's one of the top 8 at the position. If he's healthy is a fair thing. I'm going to bank and hope that he stays healthy. With his potential health and that system and roster in Indy, he is an MVP type of player at quarterback. There's no debating that. If your guy was there, I'd say the same thing. If Dak was playing in Indy, I'd say the same thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, a sentence that I never thought Ian Rappaport 3 weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was, I would say, because it would not have made sense. Carson Wentz is a commander.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is a commander, a trade that has been agreed to in principle. The Indianapolis Colts have been looking to move Carson Wentz after certainly a frustrating season on all accounts, specifically at the quarterback position. The way the season ended, played well at times in the middle, but when it counted, just did not play well enough. And certainly the frustration and angst from owner Jim Irsay was very clear here that they were going to move on. That they were going to move on from Carson Wentz and simply find another answer.
They do need another quarterback. So, Ian, what on earth do the Indianapolis Colts do? Because when the season ended, you heard Chris Ballard, you heard Frank Reich. Ballard certainly more forceful than Reich on the podium. Their dismay, it seemed, and I said it that day, it seems like they're done with the guy. And then last week in Indianapolis, it's their home. It's where we're doing the combine. And Frank Reich and Chris Ballard basically said, well, I can't say that he will or won't be our quarterback. It's like, are you dating somebody? Well, I mean, I kind of, sort of, maybe, I might be. So, I mean, they saw and they decided and they went, we are done. They gave up a 1 and a 3 to get Carson Wentz from the Eagles. And now we're going to say 2 mid-round picks. I mean, they got out quickly.
I'd say this. I think that the reality for Carson Wentz is he's got 1 season to save his career as a starting quarterback in the NFL now. Now that this trade has happened and the Colts have decided to move on from him, I think that this season coming for the Washington Commanders and him, it's the opportunity for him to save his career as a starter. And it's got to be in many ways shocking to him, staggering to him that this kind of happened, whether the writing was on the wall or not, that they actually moved on from him. Because going back to Frank Reich and in that system and in that coach that he has such a great relationship with, in many ways was supposed to revitalize the career. And I think, Laura, in some moments it did. In some moments it did. We saw an on-the-field performance last year that for a 12-week stretch was pretty darn good. We've talked about the numbers from week 4, week 5 to week 16. He was top 5 in the NFL when it came to QBR. So Carson's got to look at this situation and go on the field. How can he, 6 years into his career, become that more consistent player that we saw for that 3-month stretch last year? Can he do that and get rid of the early season or late season struggles? And then, candidly, off the field, I have been outspoken that I don't think that this move was made strictly or in the majority of because of the performance on the field. Off the field, what is not clicking for Carson Wentz when it comes to his relationships in the locker room, when it comes to his leadership style? There has to be something going on when it comes to that for the Indianapolis Colts to go, you know what, we've had enough. And I think if he can figure that stuff out, I still believe that he's a starter in this league, but this is a make it or break it year for him.
Breaking news into CBS Sports HQ, the Washington Commanders have released quarterback Carson Wentz after 1 season with the franchise. Washington traded for Wentz from the Colts last offseason. They were hoping to find their franchise QB, but a finger injury and diminished playing limited him to playing just 8 games last season. Now, with the move, Washington will save $26.17 million worth of cap space. Now, here's what Wentz did last year in just those 8 games. 1,700 yards passing, 11 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Those numbers were not great, and as you can see, that NFL rank reflects that. 31st in yards per attempt, 31st in interception percentage, and 29th in passer rating. So, for what's next for Washington and the Commanders, let's bring in